right. Hello.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome to another episode of the Yoked Podcast. I'm your host, Jermaine.
I'm KC.
And thank you for joining us again on today. Thank you for first time listeners. Appreciate you coming. For those who have listened to our podcast in the past, thank you for coming back. We appreciate you for sticking with
Yes,
us
appreciate you very
through
much.
all the tough times. All 18, now 19 episodes of the tough
Yes,
times.
yes. And I'm just thinking about how fast the year is flying by and how much is going on and all the stuff that we've got to do. And I'm like fidgeting with everything in my hair. And it's okay. I'm just
Yeah,
fidgeting with all
I'm
the things.
fidgeting with my hair as well. So thank you for joining us again on Yoked. Here at Yoked, we talk about real stories and real conversations about dating and marriage. And we're here to build covenant relationships through love and laughter.
Yes,
And we like to laugh. So
yes.
hope you do too.
Have we laughed today? Today was a long day.
It was.
I don't know
Um,
if I laughed today.
well, I guarantee you before this is over.
Yeah, we're gonna laugh. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's
So,
fine. If it hasn't happened, it will.
yes.
And there we
There,
go.
there you go. Yep.
Yes,
That's
I
all it
like.
takes. A little acknowledgement goes a long way.
Yeah.
So, since the last time we were here, a couple of things happened.
Yes. Yes. So we were off last week because we traveled out of town. We went to California for a business retreat. So we did not have an episode to go out last week because we were actually working hard on trying to grow the ministry and getting all of that stuff in order. So
Unexpectedly working.
yes,
Well, I was unexpectedly working.
yes, but that was really cool of you. We had someone else, another young lady based in California who is also in the Christian woman blogging space. She's ready to get her podcast up
Yep.
and running. So
Yep.
we sat down and helped her. Well, I was doing something else. You sat down and helped her get, more information about getting her podcast up and running. So we're really excited about that. Oh, and that was the other thing that's coming up. So that same young lady, I'll tell you about the big thing at the retreat. But that young lady, her name is Cara Grigsby, and she has a group called the Modern Woman of Virtue. She and I are actually teaming up to do a series for the month of February discussing things I wish I knew before I was married. So,
Cool. Well,
yeah, so we're taking a slightly different approach. We're letting our audiences ask us questions, like what do I need to know about XYZ before I get married, and answering those questions very openly and honestly. And so, yeah, if you have any questions, if you're listening to this and you're not married and you have some questions that you want to know, email us, send us a message on Facebook, whatever, feel free to ask. And nothing is off limits because, I mean, when we were getting ready
nothing, huh?
for
Okay.
marriage, no. We asked our
Well, yeah,
marriage
we did.
advocates.
We
We were
did.
like, how much sex are
Yes.
we supposed to have? Like, we asked the questions.
Nobody cares about sex.
They care a little bit about because they listening to this episode, boo. Okay, sorry. Ring my Memphis.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's coming up for the month of February. But
Mm-hmm.
also, while we were at this business retreat, we had the opportunity to pitch, to participate in a pitch competition where all the different companies that were represented got an opportunity to pitch an idea to a corporation for funding.
Mm-hmm.
And one new friend, two old friends won.
Mm-hmm.
And so they won prizes of $2,500, $1,500, and $1,000. So
Yep.
we didn't win, but there was an anonymous donor who was so impressed by what we were doing with this ministry that they decided to gift us $500. So we won. Well, we
Yay.
didn't win. We were gifted, but we still
Yes.
won. It was
Yes.
really cool.
Yes.
So it was our company and the young lady I mentioned, Cara Grigsby, and another young lady who runs a site that is for that encourages married couples to continue dating each other even
Hmm.
after marriage. All three of us were gifted $500 to do events with our business, so it was pretty
Yep.
awesome. Like, I'm really excited about that.
Excited.
Yeah, so make sure you look out for it. We've got some got a marriage retreat coming up this year. That's what we're doing with the money that we were gifted. So yeah,
Yep.
there's that.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, and also coming up in the month of February,
For our Memphis people,
or close within driving distance of
Mid
Memphis,
South area.
yes, is our 2020 Couples Vision Board Party.
Yes.
So I was getting ready to say that it's not called 2020 Vision. It's just because it's the year 2020,
Yes.
and it happens to be a couples vision board party
So
in the year 2020.
yes, but I
So
mean
it's
it
not
is.
it's not 2020 Vision.
But
No, it's not. I mean, I'm
I
just
didn't.
saying.
I didn't. I didn't register that. I was just like, but it is a 2020 vision because it's a vision for the year
Yes,
2020,
but it's not.
but like eyeglasses.
Yes, no,
I
it's
get it
not.
now.
No, it's
Sorry,
not.
that it almost went over my head. I caught it.
Good.
I caught it.
Thank you. So that's happening February 21st. So make sure
Yes.
you get your tickets.
Yes,
There's still a
and
few left.
yeah, there are a few left. We can only take a certain number of couples, so there are a few tickets left. It's the second time that we've done it. It's going to be such a fun event. We have so much fun. And even last year, one of the couples came in, and I found out that they got engaged.
Yep.
So
There
it
you go.
works.
There you go.
Write the vision, and make it plain.
Yes. Yes.
So, anyway, let's jump into it.
Yes. So today we're talking about sex and intimacy.
Uh huh.
And it's what you think about sex and intimacy wrong.
Yes.
It is?
No.
Okay, good.
I mean, not now.
Yeah.
I know better now, but that's because I'm really old.
So what did you
So
think before? Well, before now, as in growing up.
before, I thought that sex was intimacy. And saying that from my brokenness, because what I went through in my young adult years, I thought that sex was love. Like if somebody had sex with me, that meant they loved me. So
Hmm.
when I was seeking intimacy, it was like, okay, if I'm having sex, this means that they want intimacy with me. And as I've gotten older and have been married, we're very fastly approaching 10 years. That's insane. Um, that's crazy.
Fist pump.
Yes, but it's crazy. But as we've been married, I've learned that there's a difference between sex and intimacy.
Hmm.
And what I thought intimacy was actually wrong. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was wrong.
I mean, I was there with you. Um, Growing up, I don't think I've ever confused sex with anything else. Like I knew sex was sex.
Yeah.
I got that part. I was pretty well sold on the idea of sex. I knew what it was.
And you liked it. You liked it a lot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah.
God made it that way. So, and then with intimacy, I really thought intimacy was, for me, intimacy was couched in like chivalry.
Mm-hmm.
So like opening doors and pulling out chairs and um, holding the umbrella over her head while we walked. That was the only real picture I had of intimacy. I didn't actually know what it was beyond those things.
Did you ever put like the jacket down over the puddle? Okay, I'm
No,
glad because I was like,
no,
I always thought that was dumb. It was like
I
you're
don't know.
messing up your
Yeah, I
clothes.
never knew why you would do that.
I mean, it was supposed to be so that the woman's shoes wouldn't get messed up, but I'm like, if it's raining that hard, it doesn't matter if she steps in a puddle. Her feet are wet anyway. Like it rains sideways here. But anyway, I digress.
Right, sideways a lot of places.
But yeah, so
I
like
never. Yeah.
all that stuff you're talking about chivalry, like I never would have associated that with intimacy. I just like to me, if someone pulls out my chair or opens my door, they're just being nice. So like I've never, I mean, I never thought about that as being intimacy.
Yeah, those things, and a lot of men still do those things. Um, but for me, a lot they're more in the category of like saying I love you when I leave your presence or when we get off the phone.
Yeah.
Like it's more of a routine, a routine. It's more like a religious thing we do rather than
And kind of like a
uh,
checklist.
yeah, rather than something that's done with genuine uh, feeling and concern for the other person.
Yeah. And I remember like early on in dating when you said that I'm not the kind of person that's going to say I love you every time I leave. I was like so offended. I was like, there was so much that offended me. But I was like
Well,
so
what
offended. I'm like, but why
I
wouldn't you
was,
tell me that like every single time we leave each other or every single time? But I mean, I totally, when you explained it to me, I totally got it. Like I completely agreed with you. And that's just not our
yeah,
thing.
yeah, I was definitely like, and when we met, I was definitely in the mode of just redefining myself and just wanting to be who I naturally wanted to be. And one of the things I said was, I am not, I am no longer going to just go through the motion of saying I love you every time I leave your presence or every time we get off the phone. And some people do it. I'm not knocking those people that do that, but I'm just not. I never wanted to do that because I came from a relationship to where there were most of the time we were arguing and I did not want to say I love you when we got off the phone because it was we just got done having an argument.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I love you.
Yeah.
And that's just another it was just another thing for, you know, to get picked at about
Yeah.
rather than it actually being something meaningful.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's one of those things where I think I kind of liken it to when someone says like they're constantly saying I'm sorry and there's no action
right.
that indicates
Right.
repentance,
Yeah.
that it loses its flavor, like the
Yeah.
words hold no meaning. And if and that's kind of how like what made me kind of accept your viewpoint, because it was like if you just, I love you because you're supposed to say it, like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like you really mean it.
Right.
You're just like, okay, I've got to, greet her this way, say these certain things, say this when I get off the phone, check, check, check.
Yep.
There's
And
no
if
sincerity in
And if I miss something, it's oh my goodness.
it.
You did not say you love me when you got off the phone. It's time to throw down. What's wrong?
Yeah.
And I'm
And
just like, oh goodness.
I think and yeah, like we'll talk about that, like how what intimacy really is, because I think that we have actually grown to a level of intimacy where even if you don't say the words, I know that you love me. Like you've shown it consistently that, and I still love hearing the words,
Yep.
but our our intimacy level is not based on how many times you say I love you.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of like a
I like.
bonus.
I like that.
Yeah. So
I like that.
so yeah.
So like some misconceptions about sex and intimacy. Um, we probably hit on some of them,
Yeah.
but like one of them is only sex is intimacy.
Yeah. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of um more of a male driven, or a yeah, kind of like a male driven
I, yeah,
ideology.
I think more males hold that position, but really it's lack of knowledge. Like you'd be, I'm not amazed, but I still ask the question when
Hmm.
I see couples. I ask them about their intimacy,
Hmm.
and the man will inevitably say, "Man, we don't have sex at all," or "Yeah, we have good sex,"
Hmm.
and it's about sex.
Yeah.
With a woman, she'll just either she'll nod her head in agreement, like, "Yeah, I agree with his assessment," or she'll be the one that knows that um, when I say intimacy, it's not just sex.
Right. And I think like like for me, sex is like intimacy is being able to lay in the bed and cuddle up under you and not having sex.
Right.
And I think with men, it's just like, oh, if she like puts her booty on me, we finna do it. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's there's a difference. Like sometimes we just want to touch you
I like that.
and be touched, not necessarily get naked and get to getting.
Well,
Like,
we can get naked,
I mean, I'm just saying.
but right, we don't have to. Yeah, there has to be some level of touching that's not leading to sex, like that
Yeah,
that massage, that shoulder rub.
mm-hmm.
It's just a shoulder rub,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah. So there's sex is not like sex is part of intimacy, but it's not just intimacy by itself.
Right.
Like not at all.
Yeah.
And the other misconception I think people have is that you can't have one without the other. And the reason I think of that, so when we take our vows, we say, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. And I think we've had that example because the issues that I've had with my fibroids really affected our sex life. And like I've talked about it a little bit, but for people who don't know, I've had two surgeries for my fibroids. The second one was because I was having menstrual cycles that lasted 15 days. And so it was literally half the month we could not have sex.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have a level of intimacy without sexual intercourse, we would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Like it was hard enough as it I shouldn't say that. It was it was difficult enough as it was to not be able to be physically sexual with each other. But because we had intimacy, we were able to survive the times that we could not have sex.
Right.
So there's a misconception that you can't have one without the other. Like you have to have both.
Yep.
But as we age and our bodies change, there are going to be times when you are not able to have sex. So you better have some sort of intimacy
Yeah.
to sustain those times when you cannot physically have sex with each other.
Yep. Better enjoy the naked cuddles. But then there's also this misconception that one is more important than the other.
And so this is like, I think this is kind of like where we would be like, no, it's more important that you just hold me. And you would be like, no, I want to hold you, but I want to hold on to you,
Oh yeah.
because we give and receive love differently.
Yeah.
It's not really the same as, love languages. Like that has a little bit to do with it, but because I think men are more physically driven and women are more emotionally driven.
Hmm. That's true.
Intimacy is important to me. Like that's a high priority for me. Non-sexual intimacy. Sexual intimacy is important for you, and we have to recognize that it is just as equally important to the other person.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Well, maybe I've just matured, but I've always been this way. So yeah, I in order for me to have sex that I enjoy, there has to be intimacy.
Yeah.
I cannot just have meaningless sex.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I don't like it. Truth. I mean, transparency.
Yeah.
I have tried the meaningless sex thing.
Yeah.
I only did it like once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
It does not work for me.
Yeah.
I have to actually care about you
Yeah.
in order to engage in sex with you.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more men out there like me than would probably care to admit it.
And I mean, there we go, like breaking stereotypes, because I'm just like, I mean, I know you're not like that, but I would not assume that a lot of guys were like, I need to have non-sexual intimacy in order to be sexual. And I guess it's just because of like my big interactions with sex where it was in college when all the guys were just like, woman, get
Yeah.
it, woman,
Yeah.
like that's what I saw.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was around frat boys and athletes, so
Yeah,
that's
and
what I saw.
I think as definitely there's definitely a level of maturity there, but I I also think there's this cultural pressure to say that I, as a man, need to like meaningless sex,
Hmm.
and you don't,
Yeah.
men. You don't have to say that you like or enjoy meaningless sex. You can be like me. You can actually say, "Hey, I actually want to be intimate with my wife and my wife only," and that's okay.
Yeah.
There are a lot more men and there are a lot more people out here who are actually saving themselves for marriage. They just aren't out here publicizing, "Hey, I'm saving myself for marriage." They
Yeah.
just go quietly about their godly duty.
Yeah. And I mean that's commendable. Like I wish I had that mentality when I was younger, but um like that's really commendable. Like I would not tease someone, and I remember growing up because we had the same pressures that like you're in high school, like you have to lose your virginity, and I never had anyone around me saying that it's okay to wait until you're married and have an intimate relationship with your spouse before you engage in a sexual relationship. So like when I found out somebody was a virgin, I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Like what are you doing?
Yeah. I
um
remember one time in high school, someone said, I told them I was a virgin, and then they said, "There's no way you can be a virgin. Your voice is too deep."
what does that even mean?
And I guess back then, if you had a deep voice, then there's no way you could be a virgin.
Okay. Yeah, that's a new one, but sure. You Chicago people are weird. That's how you act in Chicago.
That's not how we talk. Um, so
um anyway,
yeah, moving right along.
yeah, trying not to digress. So defining both of these things to get a better understanding of like what we're talking about. Like sex is just sexual intercourse. There's a bunch of different ways and things that those things happen, but it is sexual intercourse. Intimacy is defined as a close, familiar, and usually affectionate or loving personal relationship with another person. So, even hearing the definitions, intimacy is so much deeper and more detailed than just sex.
Hmm.
So, understanding that there's a difference between the two. You got one that's just like sex is sex, it is what it is.
Hmm.
And intimacy being something that is that's got layers and different parts and different speeds and levels. Like there's so much involved in intimacy because it is the building of a relationship. It's establishing a foundation and then building upward.
Yep. And if you're single, you can practice intimacy with God. Not didn't mean for that to be funny, but
No,
I'm
but
serious.
no. I mean, I'm laughing because I think one thing that I think we don't teach single people that they can have intimacy before marriage, um, and that it's not okay to establish an intimate relationship with another person before they're married. And I say that it's okay only in the regard that an intimate relationship is not a sexual relationship.
Correct.
Intimacy is building like strengthening a friendship, strengthening the relationship, getting to know a person beyond like their facade, like really
Hmm.
getting to know them and understand them, and be able to empathize with them, support them, and actually have a connection. And I think because we don't teach people that it's okay to have an intimate, non sexual relationship before marriage, that people often get married not understanding how to have an intimate relationship with another person.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for people to be intimate with others or with God because they're not intimate with themselves.
Yeah.
They don't practice self intimacy. You don't practice self vulnerability.
Yeah.
There are things about yourself that you are afraid to even. There are rooms in your closet, your mental closet, you're afraid to go in. there are rocks in your mental head that you're afraid to pull up and see what's under
Mm-hmm.
there. And if you don't do that with yourself, it's going to be very highly unlikely that you would do that with someone else.
Yeah. Um. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I just, when you say, it's hard to be intimate with other people because you're afraid to be intimate with yourself, and that closes off your intimacy with God. Something to that effect that you said. I'm summarizing.
Yes, I
But
said it.
yeah. But I mean, and that's something that was really hard for me personally because even though God knows me, He knows everything about me, He knows things about me that I have not acknowledged about myself, it's still hard to confess.
Hmm.
It's hard to say, this is where I have fallen short. This is where I stumble. This is where I have trouble. And if you cannot open up to the person or to the being who created you and who knew you before you ever existed, you cannot ever open up to another person who is going to walk along, who you want to walk along a path with you.
Hmm.
Because you don't know who you are in order to be able to teach them who you are
Hmm.
and for them to be able to accept you for who you are.
Yes.
So, yeah,
If you don't accept you, they can't accept you.
no. I almost told a story, but that was going to be a digression again. I'm trying to stay
It's all right.
focused.
We cool.
I'm
We
just
cool.
thinking about the bathroom at your apartment.
Oh yeah, that's another story for another podcast. It's another story.
Yeah, that'll have to be another episode. Talk about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Uh,
So to kind of summarize, sex and intimacy and the flow of between man and woman and marriage and in a relationship.
mhm.
For most men, sex facilitates or leads to intimacy. So if I can have sex, then I feel intimacy
Mhm.
with you.
Yeah.
But for most women, intimacy facilitates or leads to sex.
Yeah.
So a woman is engaged in sex because she feels close.
Yeah.
A man feels close when we're having the sex.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they do work off each other. It's kind of that yin and yang
I was thinking
thing.
yin yang. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how most men and most women approach sex and intimacy,
Yeah.
and it's very different. So you know, it, men, if there's not enough sex or the quality of sex is not so great, I mean, you get into the end, you get into the destination, but it's a bumpy ride. Um, you may need to increase. No, you need to turn up the intimacy,
Yeah.
meaning everything outside of the marriage bed. You need to turn that up.
Yes. And ladies, if there is a lot of intimacy and he is still needing the connection, turn up the sex. He really likes it when you turn up the sex. And like we said before, they're not more one is not more important than each other. It's a cyclic kind of existence, like they're both important to the other person and they feed off of each other in a cycle.
Yep.
So
So,
so
what's it look like in real life?
so I think intimacy is like non-sexual intimacy is the time that we can sit together and I can curl up under you, even when we get in bed at night, like we don't even have to be talking. Like we have a bad habit of when we wind down we get on our phones and play games, but even in those moments when we get in the bed, I scoot up to him and like our bodies are touching, and that intimacy is just touch. Like
Hmm.
I can feel your body, I can feel the warmth coming off of you, and it's just a moment for us to connect. We're not even looking at each other. Like
Yeah, I could definitely feel the warmth coming off her.
whatever, man. We're not even looking at each other, but we are touching each other. So, it builds that connection. So it's, about, touching and cuddling and hugging,
Hmm.
kissing, holding hands, Even if we're sitting on the couch and watching TV, and I just stick my feet under you, like that's a way for us to connect
Mm-hmm.
and establish that intimacy, because I can just be comfortable and literally just be who I am in my own skin and still be connected to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So emotionally, like what is emotional intimacy to you?
So it's like being connected emotionally. So like, um, um, I would call it awareness. So making sure that I'm aware of your emotions and your mood and your temperament and acknowledging it
Yeah,
and being respectful and understanding of it,
yeah,
and being there with you. So if you're sad, I'm not like, oh, you're sad. You should be happy.
yeah, yeah,
Like some people do. Stop being so sad.
yeah,
Stop crying. Stop feeling.
yeah.
Stop feeling what you're feeling and feel how I want you to feel. You know how it sounds dumb coming out of my mouth? It sounds just as dumb coming out of yours. So don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I love, like, the whole time that we've been together, like I told you, my favorite candy was Kit Kat. Like, if I'm having a bad day and you know that I'm stressed out, like, you come home with a Kit Kat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. Like, and it's a silly little thing. It costs what, like 69 cents or something like
Nah, they
that.
done going up on the Kit Kats.
Oh,
They
my
trying to
bad.
bust
It's a little
heads.
more. It's probably like, no, actually, I did see one
But
$1.39.
yeah, it's
Anyway,
about 30 39 for a regular size Kit Kat.
that's why I eat them slow.
And then the
But
vending machine is $1.25 for a Kit. Okay.
um, but understanding that emotional intimacy is also being vulnerable with each other, like
Mm-hmm.
being able to trust each other enough that we can tell each other our our shortcomings, our deepest darkest secrets, like the things that we are afraid of being judged for, or things that have happened that we're just ashamed of.
Yeah.
We have lots of stuff in our past that if I didn't feel safe enough with you, that I could not be emotionally vulnerable, which inevitably would leave a wall up between us and cut off, like, the flow of intimacy.
Yeah.
And just being able to feel safe with you creates a level of intimacy for me that allows me to engage in sexual intimacy with you,
Mm-hmm.
which we it kind of feeds off of each
Yeah.
other.
Because my if I feel as though so if she feels as though I don't believe her feelings are valid, she will then not want to be physically intimate
Right,
with me.
right,
I don't want to be physically intimate with somebody who don't even believe me when I say I'm sad or when
yeah,
I'm angry, or who won't even acknowledge my anger, don't even want to listen to what I have to say or
yeah,
listen to my thoughts. Nah, I'm good.
right.
That's basically what goes through some of the things that goes through their mind.
Yeah. And so then the spiritual intimacy, and that's something that I really love about our relationship. And even when we record these episodes, before we start recording, we always pray together.
Mm-hmm.
And spiritual intimacy I love because we pray together, we pray for each other, and then even in finding our fulfillment in the work we do in the church, we can serve together, and then we serve each other. And that makes my heart happy.
Yeah, I think it helps that we just like being around each other.
Yeah. We kind of like each other a little bit.
Yeah, that helps.
Just a little bit. So what about mental intimacy? Cuz you're the head guy.
Yes.
What is mental intimacy in
So
relationship?
that is that's your conversation. That's your consideration, your forethought, again, awareness, and tolerance.
Yeah.
Um, and when I say tolerance, I mean tolerance of the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
Um, what's that saying? Um, feelings don't vanish because they're banished.
Hmm.
Like you, just because you reject the way someone feels doesn't mean that they don't feel the way they feel. It doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to tolerate or have room for the other person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I don't agree with you or see things the way you see it doesn't mean it's wrong
Yeah.
or not right or invalid.
Yeah.
The way you feel and what you think is valid because it's valid all by itself just because you feel it. And it doesn't matter if I think it's irrational or unreasonable or you're being petty or insecure. That doesn't matter. That is irrelevant, and it only serves to drive a wedge between you and your partner.
Yeah.
It does not bring you closer. It does not make them stronger or make them any better than what they are. It actually just tears them down as a human being. And why would you do that to somebody you love?
Right. Wow. Yeah. That's true. Because
So
I mean, it's kind of like you say you love me, but you treat me as if you hate me. Like those two things.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense that I would, you know, invalidate or dismiss the way you feel or what you think, and then
Mm-hmm.
yet in the same breath say I love you.
Right.
How?
Right.
How is that possible?
Because you can't prove to me that you love me when you're dismissing me. Like
Right.
there's no scientific evidence to back that up at that point. Like there's
No.
nothing you can do to prove to me that you're treating me this way, but you love me.
Right.
Like no. Yeah. So I wanted to you mentioned like forethought, and for me forethought represents or forethought shows me that you care about my feelings, that you're thinking about me, that you are considering how I will react to a person, place, or thing, or situation rather. And that builds intimacy for me because I know that you have made me your priority. And so it doesn't seem like I don't think I'm going to presume that most men would not think that having forethought about their significant other is building intimacy. But we want to know that you are thinking about us and that you are considering us and that we are a priority for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, not saying that men don't want to feel that way too,
Oh, well, yeah.
but, it's definitely something that is, builds intimacy for a woman to know that she is a priority. And I mean, the simple act of coming home and dropping a Kit Kat in my lap. I'm like, oh my gosh, you thought about me. Like, thank you so much for thinking of me and wanting to cheer me up. Like that, just making your spouse a priority and letting them know in little ways that you've made them that priority goes a really long way into building intimacy in your marriage.
Yeah. And so as you know, as you think about how to like start this or build it or do it in your own relationship, give yourself some grace or give your partner some grace because it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take some time. If it hasn't been happening
Mm-hmm.
or it just needs to happen more, it's going to take some time, for it to really become what we call second nature
Yeah.
or an automatic, something that's automatic.
Yeah.
Especially the mental and emotional thing, because we're creatures of habit
Yeah.
as humans, and so if we've been used to doing something a certain way, it takes some time to build new trails in our brain of doing it the new way, which is why it's difficult to transition from being single to married.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the toughest transitions.
Yeah.
Right up there with going from, having no children to having children.
Having no puppy to having puppy.
Yeah, that too. So yes, when you make a switch from thinking one way to now having to think another way,
Mm-hmm.
it just takes some time to get in the groove.
Yeah.
That's why they call it getting in the groove. It actually creates new wrinkles in your brain, but that's scientific. Go ahead.
I love it when you talk science. It's so sexy. I love your brain.
Well, thank you.
That's hot.
Oh yeah. Intimacy. There you go.
So, remember that intimacy is multifaceted and that it is interconnected. with sex. One is not more important than the other. And so I think the first thing, when we are looking at how to, or continuing on the path of creating more intimacy in your relationship, look at yourself. Don't look at your partner and say, well, if she or he does X, Y, and Z. No. Look at yourself and ask, what is it that I can do to build intimacy in my marriage? Like, do I need to help out around the house more? Do I need
Mm-hmm.
to, run more errands to, ease a burden? Do I need to take the kids and let her have a spa day to herself? Should I rent a hotel room and let her, just sleep for 2 days? Do I need to let him, not let him, but do I need to encourage him, to go out and spend time with his guy friends? Like, what is it that you can do to build your partner up, to create a space for them to be more open and vulnerable with you, to build up that intimacy in your marriage? Like, look at yourself first and
Yeah.
see what it is that you can do.
Yeah.
Because unless you are, with a narcissist, another episode,
Yeah.
if you start doing things to create more intimacy in your marriage, your spouse is going to be receptive and responsive to that.
Mm-hmm.
And they will begin to mirror the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
So, as you love to say all the time, you know, you have to be the lead and I follow.
Yep.
Like the things that you want to see in the house, you need to be the example of it first,
Yep.
and then let me follow behind it.
Yeah. Another question you can ask is just ask your partner, how can I show up for you
Yeah,
this week? How can I support you? How can I support you in what it is you're trying to accomplish? And I think that will make them say, oh, you want to be there for me? Okay. Here's what you can do.
look, let me be there for you.
But definitely, I mean, if you're struggling to kind of identify where to even start,
Yeah,
just ask your spouse, what's one way that I can show up for you this week? And I'm pretty sure they'll tell you.
yeah.
They'll tell you, and they'll be ready to list off that one thing. They might even say just one thing. Just just tell them you're starting slow. Tell them you're starting slow, and be honest about it. Tell them you listen to this podcast, and you're starting slow. Um, Tell them you're starting slow, and then just say, more and more. Ask that question, and after a while, you won't have to ask because you'll know.
And I mean, if you want to know, if you're curious about, how it works in our household and what we do, I'm just saying, every time he cleans the kitchen, I take clothes off. So, you know,
It's true. It's true.
because acts of service is my love language, and I'm gonna show you how much I love you when you do something for me.
Alrighty.
Send him in to do dishes.
All right. I got a load to do now. No. So, all right.
So yeah, we hope that this episode has helped you in creating and maintaining intimacy in your marriage, and you know all jokes aside, we hope that creating intimacy gets you more sex. I'm just gonna put it out there, guys. I know what you're in it for. Um, so thank you
And women.
so much. Yeah. Oh yeah, women too. Yeah.
Women. I heard women like sex.
Oh yeah, we do.
Okay.
I like it a lot. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here. A
Yes, we
little
do.
tongue tied, my
It's
bad.
all right. We're tired.
Just a little bit. But thank you so much for being here with us. And listening. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, like us, share it with your friends. If you are in a marriage where you need a little bit more intimacy, make sure you share it with your partner. And always rate us. We love to get some ratings to know how we're doing. If we
And comments.
Yes. If we suck, let us know. But we don't suck.
We don't.
Anyway. You can also like the Yoked Facebook page. And we'll continue the conversation there. If you have more questions about building and creating intimacy and closeness in your marriage, we're happy to talk to you about that. You can also find us on Instagram at Be Yoked and on Twitter at Being Yoked.
Yep, we are
So,
there.
so until next time, thank you so much, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.